So hi everybody and welcome back. This is a C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 125, and in this video we are talking about arrays. We extend our knowledge about arrays. First of all, let's start what we know about arrays. For example, we know that an array is a container which can contain elements, and most time we use it for creating a list or a database to put in many information. So let's create a database. For example, I want to create a database score, which we already made in our exercise anywhere, and I created here fast again int database user score, and now I know it's a type of int, or the elements have the type of int, so I need initialize them, or I can initialize them later, depends. Here is the array symbol, and I can say the number here, but I can skip this as well and initialize all the values, and it will be automatically calculated by the compiler how many elements it is. So in my case, the scores are, for example, 43, 41, and 53. Let's make this one here 30, 21. So now, so far you should know it. Of course, you should also know the other one, which is in database user. Let's call them user IDs. And this time I'm using here this array and put in exactly the elements. For example, also 3. But this time I don't assign the values in it. Perhaps I don't know the values and I assign the values later. And how we can make sure that they still have a default value. For example, it should be initialized all to 0, and you can make it with this. What we also learned, you can use just an empty braces, and this one will initialize all the values to 0. So far you should know it. And now what we do is we first of all we learn to use the syntax. Syntax is something like that. So I use the syntax from this side here, CPP reference com. It says here array declaration, perfect. Here it says syntax. That's what we know, and we have to understand this. Here we have our syntax, which means this black colors here, these are the symbols which you take directly in your code or words, and the gray colors here, which you have to create, depends on what they say. For example, you should create a declarator, you create here an expression, and here you have attributes. And yeah, let's see if we understand this kind of stuff. And I copy this one and I put here syntax, because we should understand how to use this kind of syntax. And the reason why we should learn syntax is when you have problems and don't know anything, you can go back and watch how it's created, and here it shows. But the problem is, of course, we have to understand it, because like this syntax here is a little bit very complicated, but it is the official it's the official way how it works in C++. That's why it will work. So first of all, like I said, this black colors we have just to take into our code. In this case, we have just the square brackets, and all other things we have define or use or not. All right, so we can start with this one, and the square brackets are indicating we are going to create an array. Okay, that's clear. This is the array indicator. We make an array. Cool. So the first thing is here, declarator. What is a declarator? In general, a declarator is a variable name, and then the variable name has also specifiers. Specifiers is, for example, that what we did here in front. Here we declared a variable name, and we specified this variable name a little bit more with a type specifier, for example, but there are different kind of specifiers. All right, let's do this one here. So this one is just create. If, for example, it's one example, there are many different ways what a declarator can be, but in our case, a name with a specifier, and in our case, a type specifier. Let's do this. And this time I make a string. As today, we have not to use all time ints and numbers. We can use strings as well in my string specifier. And my name is this time base user names, because then I need probably strings. And of course I can choose then here it says, when we read now the syntax, it says here this middle is is optional, right? Well, I can use the middle or not. And here on top we already know if we don't use the middle one, then you see you can't just stop here. For example, the syntax says nothing on, but if you stop just here, it says incomplete type is not allowed. And then you have to know when you are not using it, how you have to use it in general. And that's very important. Sometimes the syntax is there not clear. For example, you can't see it here directly how to go on. You have to watch it a little bit and show the examples how they used it. In this case, we are just saying, okay, I used, for example, let's use this one here with the initializer, and I say here, or let's use the second one because I want initialize nothing here. Let's say 3, and I initialize all again to nothing, 0. And yeah, now we learned how to use this. There is one more thing. Attribute, which means after this square brackets here, we can see this is the square brackets which I have here. After that, we have an optional of attributes, which means I would write here attributes after this one. But this is optional, and I say attributes. This attributes you will find it almost in everything what you can think of. And the interesting part is almost in everything it is skipped. So we don't see almost any attributes in our code, but you will see it probably in advanced codes. And I want to show you this attribute one more time. Here you can click on this one, it opens up here on top, and attributes are big list, but we don't care about this. We care just about if you see 2 square brackets, then you know, then you should think about attributes, because this is special made for attributes most time. It starts with 2 square brackets, it ends with 2 square brackets. And then think about in C++, it could be attributes. Go to the check the documentation about attributes. And of course, there are different kind of attributes. They are not all time usable for all places. For example, if I take this attribute here, I copy this one here, I put it behind my array because I can use it here. But the problem is in this case, it says does not apply here. It's not usable here. And there are cases where are usable attributes and no attributes, but just in general, when you see this double square brackets, think all time that this kind of stuff are attributes. All right, with that said, we covered understanding of array syntax here a little bit. And yeah, there is one more thing which I have not mentioned about arrays, which is a little bit more complicated than the syntax which we talked here, is the question, what type is this array here? So think about it. What type is this array here? And most beginners who have not covered all about arrays would say, yeah, the type is very easy. We have here a declaration, right? We have here a declarator, yes. And the declarator has a type specifier, which we just learned here is a type specifier int, which means this array has the type int. And that is wrong. Why is this wrong? Because an array behaves almost right, explained, but only the last part to say the array has the type int is wrong. Why? Because I said when we created an array, for example, our database score, I said, okay, I want to make a list or a container which contains my scores, right? I'm interested in the scores here actually, not about this array. So, and that's why I make an array which contains my scores. So this one will contain my score, this one and this one and this one, and these scores here are ints. this int here is referring to that what I want put in the array, not the array itself. And that's the very big confusion what happens when we talk about array types and what is the type of an array and what is it is not. And most say accidentally most times this int is the type of an array, and you have to say the int is the type of the elements of the array. And that's very important. Do this, then it's all fine. And the good point about here is, as a programmer, we don't care about this array type here. We care about the type of the arrays, and that's why this declaration is fine, because this int says the elements has the type of int, and I'm interested in this one. Most times you will get these values here. You are not interested in the type of this one, but I want to show you now the type. And there are different kind of ways to show the type, and one easy way is if you put here a breakpoint in Visual Studio, which means our debug will be activated and we can analyze code, right? That's why we use most time this debug, to see if we understand that what the compiler do in the background. And I start this one here. And now here on the bottom we have an output of the compiler. The compiler is right now here at the start. It has not read the line because it's at the start, not at the end. So, which means we have step one further. So now this line is read, and I can go here to database user score. Yes, that is exactly there. And this database user score, let's read it. Let's read it. So it starts with the name, okay. Then the value, and we see before it was like this one here, and now it has taken over the values, which means we have here 42 exactly the values which I have specified here. But we have here something interesting. We have an address here in front, right? That's something interesting. We will talk about this one, but not in this video. And then we go further here. Let's continue here, this analyzing tool, and we see type, and it says here int. Int array of 3. So array 3 ints, from right to left reading, is an array of 3 ints. But it is not int, because an int type would say just int, and I can show you that when I open this one here. I click on this one and I set the elements here, they are int type, not the array itself, right? Exactly that I said, right? And let's check the element, for example, the 43. Yes, this one is an int type, and I can check this. Here's my 43. It's in slot 0. We learned that an array has slots, slot 0, the value 43, and the type is int. Yes, this int is referring to the elements, and the type we can see, yes, 43 is an int, for 21 is an int, and this 53 is an int as well. But the type, when we want the type of the array itself, it says int array 3. That is the type. And that is a little bit confusion. It brings much confusion later when we talk about pointers and something like that. And that's why it's very important that you distinguish this one, and which means all time when you read here this int in front, it means all time the type, not of the array, the type of the elements which you put in the array. That's very important. If you understand this, that's good, because sometimes we will see, let me show you here, oh, not here, here, not here, also here in the array declaration, because they said something interesting here. They said here, before we learned the syntax a little bit, right? We say here a declarator is a most time a variable with a specifier, but it says here what we can use. Any valid declarator, okay, it must be valid. So there are declarators, valid means acceptable, and there are some declarators which are not acceptable. Interesting. But interesting is that here, and that brings many confusion later too. But if it begins with pointer, reference, or reference, R reference, this is an L reference, this is an R reference, it has to be surrounded by parentheses. So this line, I show you this one, but don't worry if you don't understand this one very well now, because this one is a part for theory again to read a little bit more about this one, but I show you what it means in our practical term, which means we can create, again, we use the syntax, right? This was a normal variable, but this time I want to use something with pointers or with a reference like this one. It can start with this too, because this declarator can start with a pointer and with an and, or with this one as well. And they say if this starts so, we have to surround it with parentheses. So let's write here again, int, this time data base star, let's say database pointer. And yeah, we make here our square brackets like this one here. We can choose again what we want put in. I say I put in something free, and I say this time I put nothing in. All right. Oh no, I put something in because I don't want to make pointers right now. And one thing I forgot, and that was, now I say I want start and say these are pointers, right? And we learned pointers start with this one. So, and interesting is when I stopped here, when we watch this, it says no error. When I start here, let's see, no error. So at least no error. So that can mean many things. But first of all, why is there no error? Because this declaration said if it starts with this asterisk, yes, it starts indeed with asterisk, or one of these other ones, then we should surround it by parentheses. But this one is not surrounded by parentheses, which means this one is something different. And what is the difference about? Now I make one more time. Oops. This here, but this time I surround it with parentheses here. Data base pointer 2, I call this 2. And now I say also here free. And now I say this one here. So interesting is that what this declaration says, right? And that says when it's so, then we should this one parenthesis. All right. But this both are right, so is this right? So when I start this, I see, okay, this is also no error, at least not at this point. But they are not the same. Are they the same? And how we can check this? Again, you can make this debug here. And when we start this, and let's see what happens here. And because most time when you have no clue, like I said, this debug is just an analyze tool. And of course, we are sorry, we are using this all time for finding bugs, but finding bugs by analyzing, right? And that's why it's not only just finding bugs, but also to analyze to see what the compiler do here. And now it says here database pointer, which is database pointer, this one here. And then I have database pointer 2, which is not here because I have to go one step further. And let's go here one step further. So now I have my database pointer here. I can analyze it. And I have my database pointer 2 here. Also, these two lines are now here represented. Good. Now we make the same thing like before. We analyze it. So the database pointer here, the variable name, has again this address here in front, which we will talk soon. Then it has here strange things in it because It says here question mark, question mark, question mark, which is 0, 0 right now. Okay. And then we have a type. Let's watch only the type here. And it says here, okay, it has a array of 3 pointer to ints. All right. And let's go to the pointer 2 here. So again, we start here. And here it's something similar. We have a address of 0. Where you go, Net? We have an address of 0 anyhow. This time we have not even a real address. And then we have just question marks. And then interesting is this type. Let's concentrate on the type, not at the start point here. This type here is different. They are not the same. So this is very important to see. This starts, this name here is a pointer to an array of 3 ints. Aha, that's different. So here, again, this one on top, this one here is an array of 3 pointers to ints. So which means I have here on this one an array which has 3 elements, and these 3 elements are pointers to ints. So these elements are pointers, 3 of them. And in this case, the second, this one has actually this name here is 1 pointer to an array of 3 ints. Careful, this one means not it has now 3 elements or something like that. It has 3 elements, but this pointer is just pointing to a type with int 3. And that's a little bit complicated to explain now here in the practical way. And that's why you should read this one in theory again, in books, and try to understand this distinguish thing here, what they want say here. But in general, I can say you what we as a programmer are interested. In this one we are not interested, because this one is similar to this other one where I said we are not interested in the pointer type. Like here in top, when we created our simple pointer here, I'm not interested in this pointer type here. Let me go here on top. It's the same thing, only just with pointers here. So here on top, it is the pointer type. I mean here, the array type itself on top here, this database score is also type int 3. I'm not interested in this array type. I just want the elements here, and the elements have int type, right? Int. I'm interested in these elements because later I want to use them as a programmer. I want to change them, get them, read them, and so on. This is the thing which I'm really interested. And sometimes I need this type 3 int, but not much time, but sometimes I need it, and that's why we learn it to distinguish. But in general, I'm not interested in that one. I have only to know it. So, and that's the same case here. In this case, I'm not really interested in the pointer type. Here, it's the pointer of the array here. I mean, not pointer, the array type here. This pointer is pointing to the array type, which I'm not interested in. Well, if you don't understand it, no problem. But in this case, this pointer here, this name here, is pointing to this array type. I'm not interested in if you point it to the int array type. Let me show you this one fast again. As a programmer, like I said, well, let's go here through. Like I said, here, this pointer 2, which is this one, I'm not interested that the pointer is pointing to an int3 array. I'm not interested in this kind. I'm interested in this one here as a programmer. Here, the first one, this array has 3 elements and they are pointer to ints. So, which means the first one has 3 elements, and these 3 elements are pointers to ints. Yes, I'm interested in pointer to ints because later these are the elements which I want to use. So that sounds a little bit confusing, a little bit complicated. It is, but in general, later you will see after you understand it, as a programmer, we will skip most time this kind of stuff. Most time, I say most time because sometimes it will be there in code and you have to distinguish that one. But most times we don't care about because we are interested in the elements. When we work with arrays, with lists, with containers, we are most time interested just in elements. So I talked much about this one, and we will talk about arrays and pointers more because the strange, let me show you this one more time. We have here a strange address here. And what this means, we have to talk about it because we already know now how we get an address, and we know also the pointer gets address, and what is there is, and the array and pointers have a connection, which is a little bit interesting to discuss, but not in this video. But I hope that you understand, first of all, reading the syntax, because this one is very good if you start to understand reading syntax, to using the syntax, and later you will understand all this kind of syntax better than me. That's perfect. And important also in this video, distinguish what is an array type, which we are not interested in. We are interested in the array elements type, which is this type, refers to this elements. Yes, I'm interested in the elements and their types, and most time I'm not interested in this kind of stuff in the array type itself. All right, I hope you should read this a little bit more in detail in theory and watch these explanations. And yeah, I stop here. If you have any questions or any complaints, like all times, write it in comments. See you in the next, and bye.